Red Badge of Courage, Chapter 16. Henry's back with his regiment. They've lined up, and the rebels are advancing on their position. So we're going to see what happens to Henry here. This advance of the enemy seemed to the youth like a cruel hunting. He began to express his anger. He beat his foot upon the ground and looked with hate at the rising smoke that was approaching like a flood. Another simile for you. There was a maddening quality in this apparent determination of the enemy to give him no rest. Again, this focus on him, like the enemy cares about him as an individual. What? Uh, he always thinks of himself as like important, and like the events of the world are somehow focused or centered on him. Newsflash, like his mom said, you're just one little guy in a great big army, and you can't go win the war by yourself. And nobody's focused on you, Henry. Um, anyway, it's just me. I get annoyed at him, and maybe everybody does. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Let's see. Uh, Yesterday, he had fought and run away. There had been many adventures. Today, he felt that he had earned an opportunity for rest and thought. He was sore and stiff from his experiences. He had had enough, and he wished to rest. But the rebels seemed never to grow tired. They were fighting with their old speed. He had a wild hate for the enemy. Yesterday, when he had imagined the world to be against him, he had hated the world. Today, he hated the army of the enemy with the same great hatred. He was not going to run all his life like a cat hunted by dogs, he thought. It was not good to push men so hard. He leaned and spoke in his friend's ear. He threatened the forest with a movement of the hand. If they keep coming after us, by God, they'd better be careful. We can't sit here and let them do much more. The friend turned his head and made a calm reply. If they keep coming after us, they'll force us all into the river. That'd be the Rappahannock River, for those of you that are paying attention. The winds of battle had swept all around the regiment until one enemy rifle, instantly followed by others, flashed in the front. A moment later, the regiment roared forth its sudden and brave answer. That'd be them shooting all their guns. A thick wall of smoke settled slowly down. It was often cut by the knife-like fires from the rifles. This is a great little detail that I think really says something about Crane as an author. He's never been to war himself, but he interviewed people about the war, and you could sort of imagine what it was like. This is back when guns used black powder. There was a lot of smoke that came out of the rifles, and so they erupt. The Confederates erupt in this fire, and it puts this big cloud of gray smoke, and then the Union Army shoots, and there's another cloud of gray smoke, and the smoke sort of floating there in the air like a thick fog or mist. And every time a rifle fires, a bullet goes shoo flying through that mist, and it creates its own air currents, and so you can see the smoke sort of pierced by these bullets. It says often cut by the knife-like, and that's a simile, fires from the rifle. So it's almost like the rifles are knives, like stabbing through the mist, and you can sort of see the way that it curls and moves. It's a good detail, a good image. To the youth, the fighters seemed like animals, and here's our animal imagery again, right? Thrown for a death struggle into a dark hole. There was a feeling that he and his companions were always pushing back the attacks of fierce creatures who were slippery. Their gunfire seemed to have no effect upon the bodies of the enemy. The latter seemed to avoid them with ease and come through, between, around, and about them with an unopposed skill. He had taken a position behind a small tree with a determination to hold it against the world. He had not thought it possible that his army could succeed that day, and thus he felt the strength to fight harder. But the group had moved in all ways until he lost directions and locations, except that he knew where the enemy was. The flames burned him, and the hot smoke baked his skin. His rifle grew so hot that ordinarily he could not have held it in his hand, but he kept firing it. When he shot at some changing form through the smoke, he made a fierce sound, as if he were delivering a blow with all his strength. When the enemy seemed to move back, he went instantly forward, like a dog who, seeing his enemy slowing, turns and insists upon being followed. And when he was compelled to move back again, he did it slowly, angrily, taking steps of despair. Once in his fierce hate, he was almost alone and kept firing. When all those near him had ceased, he was so completely busy that he was not aware of a silence. He was surprised by a rough laugh and a sentence that came to his ears. "You fool, don't you know enough to stop when there isn't anything to shoot at?" He turned and then looked at his companions. During this moment of silence, they all seemed to be staring at him with surprise. Turning to the front again, he saw under the lifted smoke a deserted ground. He was uncertain for a moment. Then he understood. He turned to his companions and fell upon the ground. His flesh seemed strangely on fire, and the sounds of the battle continued in his ears. He reached blindly for his canteen. The lieutenant was shouting. He seemed drunk with fighting. He called out to the youth, "By heavens, if I had 10,000 wildcats like you, I could finish this war in less than a week." So he's being praised for his bravery. He sort of lost sense of himself and just, advanced on the enemy position and kept firing and kept firing and kept firing. And then, even when it was all over, he's still firing. Some of the men murmured and looked at the youth in wonder. It was clear that as he had loaded and fired and cursed without stopping, they had found time to watch him. And now they looked upon him as a war devil. His friend came over to him. There was some fright in his voice. "You all right, Fleming? Do you feel all right? There isn't anything the matter with you, Henry, is there?" "No," said the youth with difficulty. His throat seemed full, and it was hard to talk. These happenings made the youth think. He realized that he had been a beast. Remember the duality between his introspective, civilized, intellectual self, and then when war comes on and all of that disappears, it's all gone, and he becomes an animal. He saw that fighting like this had been fine, wild, and in some ways easy. He had been a magnificent sight, no doubt, but by the struggle he had mastered his fears, which seemed to him like mountains. They had fallen like paper, and he was now what he called a hero. He had not been aware of the process. It was as if he had slept, and awakening from him, found he was a nobleman. All right, now let's go back to earlier. He had this long sleep. Is this a change in Henry's personality? Has something shifted? I mean, we saw Wilson had a major change in his personality. Is something like that going on with Henry? When we go back and we read it again, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this, except that he's discovered that when it comes time to fight, it's time to stop thinking. It's time to stop being civilized. You gotta revert to your animal instincts and act like an animal. It's easy to do that. It's hard to fight and kill another person when you're thinking like a person, because then you have all these things like morality and guilt and right and wrong and all of those sorts of things that worry you. But when you're an animal, you're just doing what animals do. So I think there's something about that too. He lay back and enjoyed the stares of his companions. Their faces were black from burned gunpowder. Their breathing was loud and hard, and from these dirty faces they looked at him. Good work, said the lieutenant. He walked back and forth, restless and eager. Sometimes his voice could be heard in a wild, strange laugh. When he had a particularly serious thought about the science of war, he always spoke to the youth. I think that's interesting. So now the lieutenant has decided that the person he wants to talk to is Henry whenever he has something to say. There was a strange joy in the talk of the men. "I guess this army will never see another new regiment like us. Lost a lot of men, the enemy did. Yes, and in about an hour they'll lose a lot more." The forest still carried its burden of noise. From under the trees came the rolling sound of the guns. A cloud of dark smoke went up toward the sun, now bright and gay in the blue sky. There's a contrast, too. We got the dark smoke, we got the war, but then we got the bright, happy, gay means happy, sun in the blue sky. So, we got that sunny day contrast. And that's how the chapter ends, with a contrast between the battle and nature.